So, are you there, Tim?
Yes, morning, Brian.
Yeah, good morning to you. And what's the weather like in South Wales?
Absolutely beautiful. The sun is out. It's nice and warm.
Yeah.
I've just sold a car, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, we've got lovely weather here as well, which makes a difference. So, if we just set the scene a bit, where are you? Where are you living in South Wales? I think you're somewhere close to Cardiff.
Yes, I'm in a small rural village called Rudry Village,
Yeah.
which is near Caerphilly and on the outskirts of Cardiff.
Right. Okay. And just tell us a little bit. You say you've sold a car. What do you do for a living?
I'm a specialist motor dealer. I specialise in repairs, sales. I've been in the industry for 22 years.
Right.
It's a very small family-run business, and it used to be a lot better than it was now. But we're
Yeah.
struggling on with doing okay.
Times are tough. And how long have you been in the local community there?
I've been here since March 1999.
Right. So you know a lot of people, and you'd consider yourself to be, part of the local community and knowledgeable as to what's going on.
Yes, very.
Right. Okay. So if we start at the beginning, then what have you seen happening in your local village community that's aroused your attention?
Right. Well, when I moved into the community in 1999, within a few weeks, the facility known as Rugby Parish Hall next door to me was having unbelievable loud parties till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, stopping me and my family sleeping. After a few months, we went over there to speak to the community hall representatives. We went to this meeting, and it was absolutely clear that the vast majority of people there were decent people. But there was a few people within that group who was very aggressive. They deliberately tried to humiliate and degrade me and my wife. A friend who came over to give me some form of moral support walked out halfway through the meeting. He said, "Tim, why are you putting up with this?" He said, "You don't have to be on the receiving end of this." He said, "Let the police and the council deal with it." I said to Mark, "Well, Mark, I've chosen this village to be my home," I said, "with my young children. And I've got to make an effort to, resolve these issues."
Right. So Rudry Hall, I think I'm right in saying, has a little while ago received a lot of money from the Welsh Assembly. Is that correct?
Yes,
400?
almost £600,000.
Right. So a little rural hall suddenly received £600,000. I think most people in rural areas would consider that to be a huge amount of money.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so you've experienced some rather unpleasant abuse, or perhaps harassment is the right word for.
Brian, harassment, I'm talking about organised domestic terrorism. I've studied these subjects after being on the receiving end of it for going on 13 years. What these people were doing, orchestrating deliberately, it got that bad during the middle of 2006. 2 police officers, senior police officers, came over to see me and my wife, and they said to me the last time we saw a situation like this, he said, people were murdered. And I said to the police officers, I said, "What do you mean?" I said. He said, "Well, we're very, very worried about what's going on."
Right.
I've had my windows smashed. I've had my children, my son is disabled. He's been beaten up 3 times, hospitalised twice, because of the procurement, the tension behind the scenes in the community by these common purpose graduates.
Right, and you've also had some pretty unpleasant graffiti painted on your gates.
Yes, I'm of my father's side. I'm of very close Jewish origin, Brian, I feel very, very uncomfortable even repeating what was said on my gates. It was the most appalling, disgusting racial graffiti I've ever seen. It was targeted at me. My father worked in the bank for over 30 years. It said on their banker, "Jew scum out." Well, I'm brought up in a Christian household, and
Right. So, Tim, you were seeing a small number of people who were causing problems, but you were also seeing linkages, connections between these people.
Right. Now, this has gone on for a long time, Brian. It's gone on for 13 years, so it's quite a complex matter, but if I can just give you the gist of it. I originally thought that the group was abusing me, but it wasn't the group. There was a few individuals operating inside that group, and they were agitating in the background to deliberately cause friction. And let me just read one of the rules from the practices they're using. The Saul Alinsky rules for radicals. This is used by the UK government. It's been sanctioned by the Cabinet Office. And here's rule number 12. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. Saul Alinsky rules for radicals 1 to 12.
Right, now I'm just going to give you a little bit of help there because the UK Column Live has mentioned Saul Alinsky before, and I'll say to viewers and listeners for the programme this afternoon that they can check this man out themselves by just simply going onto Google. They will find that he was a radical in America who was actively working to create major change in society. He was attacking society. He wrote a book which Tim has just referred to, Rules for Radicals, and that book is dedicated to Lucifer, which is a remarkable thing. What is more remarkable is it is absolute fact that this man's doctrine has been taken on board by both the Conservative Party and Labour, and the UK column has already published documents to show that, and we will make that evidence available again. So what you're saying, Tim, is that you are seeing at your local community level Saul Alinsky type tactics being used not only against you but also to disrupt harmony within your community. Is that right?
That's right, Brian. And it's not being directed against me. They have used innocent individuals. They have deliberately encouraged groups together to act as terrorist groups. If you study what these people are doing, there's absolutely no doubt. I was speaking to a police officer yesterday, and he said to me, or he conceded, I should say, that if these practices are being used, he said, yes, he said, Mr. Rogers, they are equal to a conspiracy to terrorize and harass.
Right. Now that's quite a significant comment, Tim, if you're saying that I know that you've been working hard to expose what's going on. If we're now at the stage where you're starting to get police officers who are responding to the evidence that you're putting in front of them, that's quite encouraging.
Well, this, again, is a complicated matter because people don't realize how this works. When you've been subject to these types of practices, you will know that what's going on is abnormal, but you will not be able to identify it. You won't be able to make sense of it. It's being done deliberately to create anger and frustration. And this is happening and being duplicated in every single community.
Right. Now, one of the things that you've picked up on is what's being done within what I'll loosely call creative arts and drama. And I know that in South Wales, some of that is focused on young people. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's terrible, Brian. Because of all the anguish these common purpose graduates have directed against me, last June they started on me again. So I thought to myself, hang on a sec, I'm going to start looking into what they're doing. So I looked on their website. I identified 3 people who looked suspicious. And I started to investigate what's going on. Now, since that time, I've watched this facility like a hawk. I've been watching everything they're doing, all the sort of posters they put up for plays, and it's disturbing, Brian. It's terrible.
Right.
There was a depiction of a child last July self-harming of a 15-year-old boy. He's got chalk, or what appears to be chalk, in his right hand. He's scribbled out his own face. His face is scribbled out. And if you look, it appears that he's wet himself.
Right, and where sorry to just cut in there, Tim, and where did you actually first see this poster then?
I first saw it at the Parish Board notice board. Also signs for well-being, which we've investigated and so yourself. And again, you look further into the arts, and the arts and creative arts drama networks, and the stuff they're pumping out to children is terrifying.
Right.
Now, I spoke to a police officer, senior police officer. I forwarded him all the information that I found. He said it's a matter of interpretation. I said to him, the law is absolutely clear on this. I said, if you look at what they're doing, if you understand the psychology dynamics behind it, I said we're looking at psychological warfare.
Right. So from what you're saying to us today that you're seeing an attack really on on the minds of young people. Can you tell us a bit more about some of the content of the drama and the plays that you've come across?
Again, this is a very complicated matter. You've got to understand the psychology behind it, and I think what you're referring to is suicide material. The more I searched, the worse it got. The more I looked at the theatre networks, the more worrying it becomes.
Well, of course, this is, of course, a very sensitive and important area for South Wales because there's been such a dramatic rise in the increase. There's been such a dramatic increase in the number of suicides amongst young people, and to date, nobody has provided a satisfactory explanation as to what's causing these suicides. So you feel that this is connected with that increase?
Well, I'm not a psychologist or a professor of psychology, but I've read clear psychological reports, and I think that anybody would understand the sort of information and sort of material that pumped out to children is dangerous. And it works like this. There's a well-known study called the Werther effect, the first study of contagion suicide. And basically, in a nutshell, and putting it in simple terms, the more you talk about suicide, the more you encourage even to use the word suicide will increase suicide. I can expand on this subject if you'd like me to, Brian, but generally, in a nutshell, that's the proven theory of it.
Right, and I'm watching the clock, and I know we've got a number of topics to get through, but just to stick with this one for just a couple of minutes, are you saying that within the dance and drama material that you've now been researching, are you saying that you're seeing material which you think is helping to trigger suicides?
Well, what we're looking at is I've provided to you hundreds of documents to do with the creative arts, and we're looking at suicide plays, hanging, pictures of self-mutilation, depictions of self-harming, subliminal speak, subliminal images. Whenever you look at the creative arts, if you put creative arts together with suicide in a Google search engine, you would be absolutely horrified at how much material is out there.
Yes.
These networks.
Well, of course, I've mentioned part of that in one of the talks that I did in Swansea on the subject of the suicides, and I showed an image from a film company called First Light that was busy boasting that they were using lottery money to help 13-year-old children make, in the particular one I used, was to make a film about a little cartoon dog committing suicide. And that cartoon, which I found actually particularly offensive, included a scene where the dog tried to hang himself but wasn't successful. And then later, the dog achieved his suicide by running in front of a truck. But we had a film company, and people can go on the internet and research it, First Light Film Company, who are proud to be getting young people to make these sorts of films.
Well, it's terrible, Brian.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the production at the moment, but Flying. Do you remember it, Brian? The one I showed you with the Flying Act. That was being used in conjunction with No Fit State Circus, and there's a picture of about a 15-year-old boy standing on what appears to be a school chair with a noose around his neck. And this was again one of the other productions they're showing children.
Right. And if I just help draw this together a little bit for viewers and listeners, you are giving one or two examples here, and of course I know because I'm holding some of the material from you, but you have spent hundreds of hours looking into this area, and what you are finding is a trail of these very dark, disturbing plays, dark subject matters, but in particular the fact that they are being aimed at young people, and of course we've got this other very pronounced theme of suicide and various ways of committing suicide.
Can I just expand on the word of effect again, Brian? Right?
Yes.
What it actually is, what the word of effect says is it's all about identifying with your mentor, your hero, your pop star. So, for example, when we were younger, we'd all remember that, I don't know, Status Quo, I think I'm showing my age by saying that. But we'd all wear Levi jackets and so on. And then Michael Jackson, the pop star, there was many of my friends in school, they were doing the moonwalk. So if you can stage and put together a production where people can identify in themselves with their heroes on stage, and let's just say, for example, those heroes are putting nooses around their neck, it will increase the likelihood of suicide by 1,000-fold. Now, this is well documented in world studies, and what we're looking at is the theatre networks pumping out this material to innocent, vulnerable young children.
Right, and of course all of this is being funded with our money. Taxpayers' money is being used to put out this type of material.
Yes, well, by all accounts, what we're looking at is lottery money.
Lottery money, yeah.
It's all being, again, procured through the charities, with common purpose graduates running these charities and being encouraged to open different quangos, so it's very difficult to track who is doing it.
Right, but you have been very successful in tracking individuals and how they're connected. Could you just describe, I'm trying not to put words in your mouth, but can you just describe some of the networks that you've uncovered and how you've actually been able to uncover the networks?
Right, well, I've studied politics and history now for about 7 or 8 years. I came across your talks about 5 years ago, but it seemed like it was a sort of vague idea of what's going on. And I tried to identify the people in my community who were causing me harassment. I knew they were doing it. I knew who was doing it, but I couldn't identify them as common purpose graduates. But what I've actually done is these common purpose graduates are encouraged to open up different quangos. But if you trace them back through leadership courses, you will be able to identify. It's quite an easy process. Initially, at first, it seemed very complicated, but it's not. But so when I started to have the harassment again last June, I was determined to find out or to prove these people are actually common purpose graduates, and I did. And the way you do it is if you look at your chairman or your vice chairman of your parish hall council, not the committee, they run in several different groups in each community centre. Look at your chairman and the vice chairman of the community council, put their name in a search engine together with your area, for example, Fairwater, Cardiff. So Joe Bloggs, Fairwater, Cardiff, leadership. And if you can see they've attended a leadership course, then get the name of that leadership course, put it into Google together with the name Common Purpose, and all of a sudden, whoosh, it'll all come up on the screen. That these courses are actually common purpose courses.
Right, and you've mentioned to me that you've also discovered individuals talking, I think it was on a blog, where they were actually discussing tactics for carrying out a campaign about individuals, how long it would take to run a sort of false court case.
Yes, what they're trying to do is they find, I mean, at the moment, Tony Blair brought out 3,500 more laws, criminal laws and so on. We all know we're completely over-regulated. The country is over-regulated, so it's very, very easy for these people to pick a problem. We've got thousands of property laws. So what they do is they look for a target, and there'll be one person in the group who's trained, who knows what they're doing. So they would have done their homework maybe a day or a couple of days beforehand. They get this group to descend on this person's property, and they deliberately try to agitate the situation. This is being colluded with particularly legal staff in councils. I've identified 2 common purpose graduates in my own council, and then they start a series of pointless court cases. One ended 2 weeks ago with the council paying me my solicitor fees and dropping the case. I've lost count of how many court cases have been deliberately engineered behind the scenes by these same common purpose graduates. So effectively what they're doing is they're deliberately trying to degrade people's private rights, people's private property, individual rights. And the blog you were referring to, I come across was the Third Sector blog. Again, do a search, the Third Sector, Saul Alinsky, and you'll see it all come up on the internet.
Yeah.
But what this blog explained is that they were talking about loose terms, and it's Fabian speak. They talk in the sort of terminology that most people wouldn't understand, but they know what they're talking about. So they're explaining how long it takes for a court action to be resolved, and they're using the words, I believe it's something like to bring a court action. I wish I had the document in front of me now. I read so much.
No, that's okay. Just do your best. Do your best from your memory.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, but generally they're talking. The consensus is bringing pointless court action against people and how long it takes to resolve each action. So, for example, a fencing issue would take 6 to 12 months to resolve, and they're then talking about other ways and methods of aggravating the situation while this is going on.
Right. Now, I can imagine that people listening to us talk at the moment I think there'll be a mixture of disbelief and some people quite horrified at what we're talking about. We're talking about politically motivated individuals, and certainly people who are funded through the public sector are actually working against individuals in communities, and they're causing friction in communities.
Well, it's as said, Brian, about Rule 12 of Saul Alinsky, find the target, isolate the concept, go after people. They hurt more than institutions. They are deliberately colluding together with other common purpose graduates within the council and bringing pointless action against somebody. So what they're doing is in tinderboxes within communities. They're engineering a situation of tension and frustration. And I believe I had a conversation this morning with a friend of mine from Graiguaca. But unbelievably, he's had 10 years of absolute total abuse. And I've explained to him how it is all being engineered. And I'm going up to see him actually to show him the evidence, what and who's involved in his community centre.
Right, okay. Now, we've got about 3 minutes left. What have you actually done to try and alert people to what's going on? How have you gone about trying to wake people up to what's actually happening in your community?
Well, look, this is real, it's happening, and I think the only way people believe it is if they do, as I said earlier, look at the community council chairman and vice chairman, or anybody else in that group they may believe that they use skills, and another wonderful way, an absolute priceless way to find out what skills they're trained in, is go on that person's LinkedIn page. All the common purpose graduates are on there. Look at the organizations. Have a good look at their LinkedIn. Have a look at the organizations they're associated, and then put that organization together with Saul Alinsky, and bang, it'll all come up on the screen. You'll have absolute full evidence that those people are actually associated with organizations who are teaching Saul Alinsky.
Right. And I think a little thing we should put in for our listeners is the fact that the people who are involved in this are doing it because they've actually been reframed. Their political views and their social views have been changed. I mean, no normal human being would be working in this very deceitful way to harm other people.
Well, because I've been under so much harassment by these people, I loathe to say actually that they're victims. But if I was being honest, Brian, they are. I studied the psychological material that you sent me. And again, if you look into these people, look onto their Twitters, and what you'll find is an unbelievable amount of neurolinguistic programming being mentioned. They're talking about civil disruption. They've got friends on their accounts who call themselves professional troublemakers. They've been on the receiving end of cognitive brain therapy. It's all on their Twitters. It's all on their LinkedIn pages. Do your research, and what you'll find is what we're talking about is it's not just happening, and it's unbelievable, but it's there in plain English what these people are doing.
Right. So I'm if I may, I'm just going to sum up a little bit there. What Tim has been giving us this afternoon, and I hope, Tim, you'll come back on the show with us and do a longer session, and hopefully we can put up some documents for people to see on screen. So I do hope you'll come back again. But we are seeing activists working under the surface in order to disrupt local communities, to target people, and also to cause strife in those communities. And the doctrine is Saul Alinsky. People can check what we're saying this afternoon because this is absolute fact. Saul Alinsky doctrine is now part of the Conservative and Liberal Democrat political and social agenda. It's part of the Labour Party political and social agenda. Both those two groups, both those parties, are talking about creating thousands of community activists, and these are change agents, and they are change agents who will be working under Saul Alinsky rules. The documentation is available. People should find it themselves online, but if not, the UK column will help with that. And of course, the most sinister angle of this, which you have touched on very well, so thank you for that, Tim, is you're also pointing out that we are not just dealing with ordinary individuals, we're dealing with individuals who have had their personalities and their personal and their social views changed by applied behavioural psychology. And again, the proof for this is out there. The UK column a few months ago printed very, very detailed articles pointing out that the government, via the Cabinet Office, and Mr. Francis Maude MP is heavily involved in this, as is Sir Robert Kerslake and formerly Gus O'Donnell. The government has been spending tens of millions of pounds for several years now in order to use applied psychology to get ordinary people doing what they think is correct. And for you now to identify this in a local community is very, very serious stuff. And I'm sure that viewers are going to want to learn more. So, Tim,
would you just say, Brian?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. It's very, very important. There are a lot of people on the receiving end of this. I was talking about my friend earlier from Greg Rucker. It's very, very important. It's crucial that they find out what is Saul Alinsky and they will go away.
Right, this is a very important point, and I think the other thing we should say is that if you find yourself being targeted by this type of activity, don't act as an individual. The first thing you should be doing is getting friends and support alongside you, because they are clearly very nervous at trying to tackle groups of people, because people acting together and supporting each other, of course, quickly bowl out what's going on.
Well,
Yeah.
absolutely. And as you say about groups, Brian, this is what they use as part of their army. They whip tension within a group.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, you're a little bit.
Brian, I'd like to, give a real thank you to you, because if it wasn't for your work, I would have never ever identified what these people are doing.
Right. Okay. Tim, thank you very much for that. Thank you for joining us, and I do hope that you'll come back in for a longer session where we can put some more meat on the bone. So thank you very much,
Lovely.
Tim Rogers.
Pleasure. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Well, there we have it. One man giving his experiences of what's going on in a rural community in South Wales. But I can tell our audience today that what he's talking about is going on right the way across the country, and we can absolutely track it back to central government policy to disrupt and break down local communities. Okay, thank you very much for joining us on this section, and we'll have more for you in the rest of the programme.